Hello guys, hope you're really well. Happy to be back here talking Arsenal with you today. Our subject is going to be phase 2 of Arsenal's transfer window. And that's because although we've seen quite a lot of big business done already, we've seen Kai Havertz come in, we've seen Jurrien arrive, and then the club record, British record signing of Declan Rice. Nevertheless, despite that, all the comments, all the questions I'm getting are, well, what happens next? You know, people are looking at the date, they're looking at the end of the transfer window and saying there's still plenty of time there. What are we going to see? Are we going to see players coming in? Are we going to see more players following Granit Xhaka out the door? So I'm going to take a broad overview on that today, go through the squad position by position, let you know what I think might be possible in the remaining weeks of the window. Before we get to that, a couple of bits of admin. First of all, if you watched my last video about Declan Rice's arrival, speaking about the significance of that for the club, how the deal was done, what it means, I had a few comments underneath that picked up on the fact that apparently about halfway through, when I was speaking about this being representative of big backing for Mikel Arteta, I spoke about significant investment from KFC. Now, a lot of you got in touch to say you thought I may have made a mistake there, but as you'll all be well aware, I'm far too professional to ever make a mistake. So I did in fact definitely mean that Arsenal owe the Declan Rice transfer to Kentucky Fried Chicken. And if there is one individual we need to thank, it is not Mikel Arteta, not Edu Gaspar, not Stan Kroenke, but Colonel Sanders himself. Colonel, we salute you. Another piece of admin, if you're enjoying these videos, those slight detours about KFC aside, please do like, subscribe, comment, it all really helps. And we've got some really exciting stuff coming up as we get closer to the season. Of course, we've got the pre-season friendlies, probably more transfers. So subscribe and make sure you get my videos as soon as they are released. Thank you so much for that. So, phase 2 of the transfer window. What's it going to look like? What does it mean for Arsenal? Principally, I know we all find incomings more exciting. Phase 2 is about sales, and everyone at London Colney understands that. The next thing that needs to happen is that Arsenal need to shed some of the surplus players in their squad. They've begun that process a bit. Pablo Mari has gone permanently, Granit Xhaka has gone permanently, but there's still work to be done there. If those players do move on, it may open up a possibility to bring in more players, more signings to add to the 3 key targets we've already landed. But we'll go through it position by position. I think that's the best way to break it down. And we'll start with goalkeeper. When I spoke about summer squad building a few weeks ago, I mentioned there'd been interest in Matt Turner. I think, there will be more interest after his form for America during this international break. He's been in outstanding form, particularly when it comes to saving penalties. One of the clubs who really liked Turner and followed him quite consistently were Brighton. To be honest, I think if Brighton are interested in a player, it always makes you think twice about selling them because, they've got a very good eye for talent. And they know Matt Turner, they know his statistics, they know his qualities, and he was someone they had looked at as a potential number 1. However, they've ended up signing the young Belgian goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen for best part of 20 million euros, I think. And so I think that would probably rule out Brighton as a destination for him. They've also got, is it Steele, was first choice there at the end of last season, so plenty of competition among their goalkeeping selections. So Brighton probably no longer an option for Turner. Will there be other Premier League interest? Potentially. I think at this stage of the window, especially with him showing the form he has been showing, Arsenal will be inclined to keep him unless he says he wants to go and play. I don't get the sense that he's going to make that demand necessarily this summer. I think it might be something that comes in the near future, maybe January or the summer after, especially with the World Cup looming. I think he is going to want to play first team football. He's youngish for a goalkeeper, but he's not a young player, and he developed quite late, blossomed quite late, so he doesn't want to waste too much time. But I think it's probably in everyone's interest that he stays, and then Mikel Arteta faces that fascinating decision of who's going to get the European games between Ramsdale and Turner. That may be a big call that Arteta's going to have to make. Other goalkeepers in the squad, I think Karl Hein will still go out on loan. I think that was a promise that was made to him effectively, that he'd get the opportunity to go and play regularly somewhere. I think Arsenal will stick to that. I think Arthur Okonkwo will probably follow him out the door on a loan basis. Runarson's back, and Runarson didn't have a bad season last year by all accounts. He's been training with the squad. Could they keep him as a third choice? A kind of semi-experienced third choice? maybe. I think the likelihood is he goes out again, be that on loan, be that via a permanent deal. Arsenal wanted, I think, £1.5, £2 million for him to leave permanently. If they can find someone to bid in at that offer, he'll probably go. And then I think at the end of the window, there is still a chance we see that experienced third choice goalkeeper brought in, someone who brings, just reliability, an experienced head among the group, someone for the younger keepers to learn from. I think that would be the ideal, but there's a few other keepers whose futures have got to be decided first, right? Okonkwo, Hine and Runarsson. Ones to watch there, certainly. Defenders. Well, we had the news from David Ornstein this week that Arsenal had rejected a €2.5 million bid for Rob Holding. I think that was absolutely the right decision. I think that's not enough money, even for a player who, has 1 year left on his contract. He's still only 27. I think Arsenal are within their rights to expect at least double that, maybe more. I would have been hoping for more like £10 million, considering he's British. If he was going to a Premier League club, I think that would be plausible. And that's a key point to make. Arsenal have players for sale, but what they need to do is attract Premier League interest in those players. Without that, they're really going to struggle to recoup fees of any significance. They have struggled historically with that. So that's got to be a focus for them. They need to be aware, and it's part of Edu's job. We think of him as a guy who speaks to agents, sells players. What he also has to be aware of, what are other Premier League clubs' requirements? West Ham have got a ton of money right now. They've got £100 million from us for Declan Rice. What do they want in their squad? Do they need a centre-half? Can we offer them Rob Holding? What do other Premier... What are Brighton looking for? What are Aston Villa looking for? These are the conversations Edu needs to have, and he needs to look at his squad and think, have we got a solution for them at a price that suits us? So a lot of his focus in this period of the window will be there, being aware of the market, being aware of what's required, and trying to find faces that fit at Arsenal to try and recoup some cash. Premier League interest in Holding would be ideal. I think it would suit him as well. I know Celtic were mentioned as a potential club who could look at him. I don't think they'd be able to pay a huge transfer fee, maybe $5 million at an absolute max. And whether they'd want to spend that on a centre-half, I just don't know. So I think he's got the opportunity to go, especially with Timber coming in, who can play right centre-back. Saliba's back training, looking fit again, playing. Fantastic news alongside Gabriel against Nuremberg. Holding can go, but it has got to be the right price. And what Besiktas came in with was just not enough. Kieran Tierney is another defender, potentially on the market. It has gone very quiet. Newcastle still looking for a left-back, still in the market. So I personally think that one could hot up in the next few weeks, something to keep an eye on. Also, another thing, just as a consideration, I think there's a chance Man City may need a left-back. There's talk of Cancelo going. There's talk of Laporte going. Now, whether City would consider Tierney someone who could fit in their system, he's a different style of left-back to Zinchenko or Cancelo, I don't know. But, if we're looking for British clubs who may have an interest in our players, they could be one that could come out of the woodwork. Newcastle have been the front runners. It's gone a bit quiet. They've looked at other options. I think they'll come back for Tierney. That's just my impression. I think he'll be allowed to go. Will he be replaced? I'm not so sure, because Arsenal have got Zinchenko. Beyond that, they've got Tomiyasu, who I think will get games at left-back, especially with Timber and White on the right-hand side. And then they've got Kivior, who played at left-back against Nuremberg and towards the end of last season as well. And I think he's pretty suited to it. Don't forget, a lot of his early experiences of first-team football were as a holding midfield player. So when he plays as a left-back in the Arsenal system, inverting, coming into central areas, it actually suits him, and he's got a really good range of passing. So I think he could be a decent third-choice option there in that position behind Tomiyasu, maybe even ahead of Tomiyasu. We'll see how things progress. And injuries, of course, are a factor to consider. So personally, I'm not convinced that the sale of Tierney would precipitate the arrival of a left-back. I think Arsenal might make do with what they've got. They've got good numbers in defence. And then there's a couple of other sort of players who were out on loan last season who could depart. Tavares, obviously. I think very decent chance that he goes. And then Austin Trusty, who had a good loan spell at Birmingham. There's been talk of interest from Ipswich. I think Championship level clubs, maybe even some lower Premier League clubs might look at him. Could be interested in England. could be a lucrative sale for Arsenal, who brought in this player at no real cost, effectively. He's going to be with Arsenal, I think, for the Tour of America. That makes a lot of sense. If he really impresses, I suppose he'll get an opportunity to impress Arteta and go from there. But I would expect him to be sold for a few million. Again, just adding to the coffers and redressing the balance a bit as regarding our expenditure. Cedric Soares is another one to consider. He was on loan at Fulham last season. Didn't have the best of times. Was told, come to Fulham, you'll play first team football. Didn't get a great deal of first team football. And I'm told his preference is to stay at Arsenal, compete for a place, be part of a big squad, be in the Champions League. It's difficult to imagine him getting much game time, though. We've just talked about the left-back options. We know the right-back options in White and Timber. Hard to see him getting a look in. He is a popular member of the squad. He is experienced. Arteta, I think, values him. And had he not wanted to go in January, I think Arteta might well have kept him around. I think if there's interest, he goes. I just think he's right on the fringes of this squad, and Arsenal probably don't want to carry that salary if they don't need to. I'm sure he'd like to stay, but if Arsenal can find someone to take him, I think they'll do that deal. So another potential departure then. None of them especially lucrative in terms of, trusty, the other loan players like Cedric. But Nuno Tavares could bring in decent money. Kieran Tierney should bring in decent money. And Rob Holding, I think it depends where he goes. I think it depends on the clubs who come in for him. Let's talk about midfield. Only one place to start, and that's Thomas Partey. We've seen Declan Rice come in. We've seen Kai Havertz come in. If there's to be another arrival in this area, I think Partey would need to leave. Now, from what I understand, although Arsenal are open to that and are exploring options for if there would be someone to take Partey, I don't think there's an obvious suitor. I don't think there's an obvious candidate right now. And that's someone who meets all the following requirements, who can pay a fee that Arsenal deem acceptable, who Thomas Partey is prepared to join and can meet his personal demands. That's quite a difficult sort of 3 hoops to jump through for any club. There was some hope that Saudi Arabia might be a destination for Partey, but so far a kind of formal approach has not really been forthcoming. Given the way that market and that league is going, you wouldn't rule it out. But at the moment, I think the odds are on him staying, which may be no bad thing in terms of depth, quality, experience in the squad. If he were to go, which is a possibility, then I think we could see somebody coming in. Romeo Lavia has been linked. I doubt very much that he's the only name in the mix. I think Arsenal will have other alternatives for that kind of deeper role. Declan Rice is the first choice there. They've got a lot of experience in the squad. Even if Partey goes, El Neni will be around, Jurrien will be around. So I think they could afford to go for somebody younger like a Lavia. And that would be an interesting development if it comes to pass. The other big one to watch here is Sammy Lacazette, loan at Crystal Palace last season, fell out of favour under Roy Hodgson. Unlikely to return there, really. He was a Patrick Vieira signing. Burnley, of course, like Sammy, Vincent Kompany knows him very well from their time together at Anderlecht. It's an interesting one. If they want to loan him, he'll take up one of their Premier League loan slots, and I hear that's something Burnley are a little bit cautious about. They would prefer a permanent deal. Arsenal, I think, need to make a decision ultimately. Are they prepared to let Sammy go permanently now? Have they seen enough to make that call? Would they rather loan him out for a year, see how he fares in the Premier League? For me, this is my personal opinion, I would cut ties at this point. I think you could loan him, see what you learn, see if his value goes up over that 6 months, 12 months. But we loaned him to Crystal Palace, and ultimately that didn't really work out. I think that was the real opportunity to increase his market value. Now he's heading into sort of the final couple of years of his contract, probably. I think we should make the call. I think we should sell him. If Burnley come in with a decent offer that allows us to get our money back on the player, it's a deal I would do. So again, that could be a bit more money coming into the coffers, and I wouldn't expect Samby to be replaced particularly, especially with really talented young players coming out of the academy. Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ethan Ranieri, who both impressed in the pre-season friendly. May play some part in the Tour of America. We shall see when that squad is announced and they will board the plane. In fact, they boarded it yesterday. I'm recording this Sunday, so they boarded it today. Forwards. Let's get on to the forwards. Flo Balogun is the big one who could go, really. Inter Milan, I saw Fabrizio Romano saying he's on their list after Romelu Lukaku negotiations seem to have broken down. Have to say, I like the idea of an Italian club for Balogun. Several reasons. I don't want him playing in England. I don't want him going to a rival or scoring against us. Second of all, I think Italian clubs are quite open to flexible deals, and things like buybacks and sell-on clauses are more customary in Italy. You think of Tammy Abraham going to Roma, Chelsea inserting a buyback for him. I think Arsenal need to do that for Balogun. I just think he's got that potential to explode. We need an insurance policy. We need to know that if he goes to Inter or elsewhere and is an absolute star, we've somehow mitigated against that risk. We've got a sell-on, we've got a buyback, we've got an opportunity to keep some stake in this talent that, let's not forget, we have developed from a very, very young age. So I like the idea of Italy. I'd even be prepared to accept a slight knockdown on the fee as long as we get those assurances in the back end of the deal. I don't think Eddie will go. I think he'll stick around. I think he'll probably be very excited about being back together with Declan Rice. They were together between the ages of 9 and 14 at Chelsea, both released on the same day from Chelsea. For them to be back together now at, let's face it, a vastly superior football club, is probably very special to them. We know how much faith Arteta has in Eddie. I just don't get the sense he's going to let him and Balogun go. I think Balogun will be the one, and Eddie will stay and stick around and compete. Nicola Pepe, well, he hasn't been part of the squad really so far in pre-season, training alone predominantly. I think that tells you a bit where he is in Mikel Arteta's plans. He's not only out of favour, he's just not really seen as part of the group. He's not even been reintegrated yet in the way somebody like a Cedric has. I honestly think Arsenal will take almost anything they can get for Pepe. I think in a dream world, Saudi Arabia look at him. I think in a more likely scenario, maybe they just let him go just to get his wages off the books. Maybe it's a negligible fee. But frankly, he's on a decent salary, and I think Arsenal will look at anything they get back on Pepe, even just getting him off the books, as a saving at this point in time. It's obviously going to be a huge loss. The transfer's been a terrible embarrassment for the club. There's no getting away from that. But I think it was a mistake, and Arsenal need to move on from it. So what does that leave us with in the forward line? Well, plenty of options. Jesus, Nketiah, Martinelli, Trossard, Saka, Nelson, Smith Rowe. Is there room for one more? Maybe. Maybe there could be an opportunistic signing. This is pure speculation really on my part, but one I might keep an eye on would be João Felix. Now, we know Arsenal wanted him in January when Gabriel Jesus was injured. We know Arsenal really liked him. We know he really liked the idea of Arsenal. He was very keen to join. In the end, Arsenal couldn't strike a loan deal with Atletico, and he went to Chelsea. Chelsea was a bit of a disaster for him. They didn't really have a consistent manager, consistent system. I don't think that deal looks like it's happening permanently. And from what I hear, he's caught in a bit of a limbo right now, João Felix. But he is terrifically talented. And in much the same way as Arsenal have taken a bit of a punt on Kai Havertz, someone who has astonishing natural gifts but it hasn't quite worked out for, Felix would be the same. You know, he's got a huge salary and Atletico would probably not like that on their books. He can play a lot of roles in this system. He can play as number 9, he could play off the left, he could play off the right, he could play as a second striker. He brings depth, quality, youthful experience. I've spoken about Mikel Arteta's obsession with that on more than one occasion. It might be one that late in the window, if Atletico are looking to offload him, Arsenal come back to. Just because we know they like the player and he can do a lot of jobs, and it may be relatively low cost if it's just a loan fee or just taking over his salary. Maybe we get him at the price we were kind of hoping to pay in January, and we take that gamble on his undoubted talent. We shall see. I've done the best part of 20 minutes here, guys, so I'm going to leave it there just to say thank you for watching. We had a bit of a break from the videos while I was waiting for Rice and Timber to be announced. I recorded those videos and they were sitting in drafts for a few days, I will admit. But we're really cracking on now towards pre-season. If I watch the pre-season games, I'll give you some thoughts afterwards. We'll chat about developments in the market. And as ever, any particular ideas you have, just let me know in the comments below. It's a bit dark today, but I'm in my office and the sun's on the other side of the flat. Baby's asleep in the other room. Do like, do subscribe. It's very much appreciated. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, I almost forgot to say, let's do this.